Monday, March 24th, here on the Just Baseball Show, and it is one of our favorite episodes of the year, the win totals episode, where we go through every team in the American League and we go over or under based on the posted total by our sponsor, BetMGM. You got Aram Layton and I am Peter Apple. We will go over last year's record and maybe, even though we did really well, we can improve on it. And just another reminder for everybody listening, the Player Awards episode will be coming out on Wednesday. And for all those gamblers out there, this episode is also going to feature my third wave of MLB futures. And again, it is all brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. It is a great idea to take advantage of the first bet offer where you get paid up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first wager loses. So while listening to this episode, if you like one of our pitches or you hate one of our pitches and want to fade it, not a bad idea to use code JUSTBASEBALL on BetMGM because again, if your first bet loses, you'll get it all back in bonus bets up to $1,500. But remember, gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 years or older. Terms and conditions apply. Aram, the crown is on my head right now after
Yeah.
last year's record. Should we go over it? But we all did pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's you get the crown, but whatever the consolation is to the crown, I'm not far off. I was one pick away from being right there with you, but you clean swept the NL Central.
Clean swept the National League Central. Just so I got 18 out of 30 teams right. That's 60%. Aram got 17 out of 30 teams right. And Jack got 16 out of 30 teams. So all of us were above 50%. If you had all of our picks, you would have been up. And I was lucky because I was trailing you guys, and I came back in the end because I nailed every single prediction for the National League Central. Who knows if I'll get them all right in that Central Division again, but I'm hoping to get at least one division perfect. That should be our goal. Over
Yeah.
50%, at least one division nailed.
I mean, I think that's really the Central too. If you told me one division that I wouldn't feel confident about, it'd be either Central to clean sweep that. So props to you on that front. And I'm excited. I'm curious to see where we differ. We haven't talked about it too much. Obviously, you and I have an idea of like which teams we're favoring, and not just because we talk to each other on here like so many times every week. We have been through the off season, but there's always a surprise or two of one of us going over or under on these win totals. And of course, Vegas makes it tough. They usually set a pretty tough line where it's like, I agree. I don't know which one it's going to be. So this is always fun.
It's also a good day to do it because we're also both in a good mood. I'm down here in Florida. That's why I have a different background. Arm is in the other room. We were going to set it up, but it was like, why not just do it on Zoom like
Yeah.
normal? But we're also both coming off a winning golf day,
Yeah.
won a couple of bucks from your friends. So we're up
Yes.
money right now. Let's spend it. Let's spend it on some win totals. You win?
I'm in. I'm in. Thank you to Charlie and Noah for the donation.
Appreciate you guys for the donation. So I also have on BetMGM all of the division odds as well. So I think it'd be fun. We go through each division, win total over or under, and then we pick a division bet. But again, it's about value. So it's like, do you want to bet Dodgers minus 600 to win
No.
the division? Maybe not, right? So these aren't necessarily our picks to win the division, even though most of them will, but sometimes we'll be hunting for a little bit of value if we think that the line is wrong on BetMGM. All right, let's start with the American League East. And we will start at the top with the New York Yankees. Funny enough, this line opened at 92 and a half and has just been going down, down, down. Luis Heel, lat issue. He's going to be out until probably the middle of May. Garrett Cole, unfortunately, is going to be out for the entirety of the season. The Yankees have been pretty much ravaged by injuries. Clark Schmidt is not going to start. Will Warren just made the opening day roster. I know I have my answer, but I'll throw it over to you first. New York Yankees over under 88 and a half and why?
88's a low number. Like 88 and a half. At 92, I was really, I think, easily leaning towards the under, but 88 and a half, like we're starting with, I think, one of the more difficult that we're going to talk about here because I think you can react and say, like, okay, with everything happening here, I think the Yankees could easily be a disappointment, and I think they could be, but I think it's also important to remember they just got to the World Series. I know they lost Juan Soto, but we've talked about a lot of the things that they've done to kind of bolster around. Are you going to replace him? No, but they didn't just sit on their hands. I do think Bellinger has looked great this spring. I think Jazz can take a leap. Ben Rice is pulverizing baseball. So if it didn't slip so much, like if we recorded this episode a week ago, I would have jumped all over the under, but I think they sneak out 89, 90 wins, and I might have to go for the over here.
I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go the under. I'm going to read to you right now the Yankees' current IL situation. Giancarlo Stanton is dealing with elbow tendonitis in both his right and his left elbow. DJ LeMahieu has a strained calf. JT Brubaker, Garrett Cole, Luis Heel, Clark Schmidt all hurt. Clayton Beater, Jake Cousins, Scott Afros, Ian Hamilton, Jonathan Loizaga. Now, most of them will be making their way back, but I do worry about this Yankees bullpen a little bit. Obviously, we love Devin Williams and we love Luke Weaver at the top. And I think Tim Hill is a solid lefty, but Fernando Cruz, Mark Leiter Jr., Yoendris Gomez, Yeri De Los Santos, Brent Hedrick, and then you look at the current rotation: Rodon, Freed, Stroman, Will Warren, and Carlos Carrasco. And the question that we've been asking ourselves all offseason is who is going to be the Yankees' second best hitter behind Aaron Judge? Could it be Jazz? That's probably one of our picks. We really like Austin Wells. He's actually going to start leading off against righties, similar to Schwarber over there in Philly. But I just look at this team and it doesn't seem to have the same firepower. Now, the
No.
American League is pretty wide open and it has definitely come down. But I think that this team has 85 to 87 wins in front of them. I'm going to go under.
I know, and that's where I was leaning for most of this offseason. Just seeing it get down to 88 is so low for me because when I still look at the offense, and I agree, like the second best hitter, like who's that going to be? But I mean, I'm hoping Goldschmidt can bounce back a little bit. I'm very skeptical of that, but I still look at the rest of the lineup, and I do think a lot of guys can take a step forward. You are going to have Clark Schmidt back relatively early. I think he may only miss one or two turns at most in the rotation,
Yeah, he's just working back up.
but you're a lot of stock in a Will Warren breakout, which he's looked great this spring. A lot of stock in Rodon just being at least what he was last year, which was a 3.96 and 175 innings. I do think the bullpen's going to be good overall, and
It's
I
going
do
to be
think
good.
they're the best candidates to get Fernando Cruz right,
Yeah.
given the stuff that he has. I don't like it at all, to be honest. Like I don't feel good about it. I don't want to change my answer though out of the gate. I'm gonna stick with it, but I don't really like it, to be honest, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
It feels like it's slipped almost too much
No,
to where I feel like I just have to take the over.
it's actually a good idea to preface that as well. Like some of these we actually bet. I'm not betting the Yankees
Wouldn't touch with a
under.
10-foot pole.
Exactly. And you're not betting the Yankees over, but for this exercise, that's probably where we're going to go. We can't forget this team won only 82 games back in 2023. Like this roster, unfortunately, at least how I view this lineup, is one Aaron Judge injury
That's the problem.
away from being a really tough lineup to watch. I mean,
Yeah.
you're relying on Goldschmidt, you're relying on Bellinger, you're relying on Jason Dominguez, and who knows when Giancarlo Stanton is going to come back. It's
Oswaldo
not a very
Cabrera.
good
I hate this team, I
it's
think,
still not a
actually.
very good defensive
I
team
don't
either. I mean, I'm coming to you from a Yankee fan. Like, I'm not very excited for this season. And we know also the hangover post losing the World Series
they
is.
can't make trades either. Their system is garbage.
Did I talk? I mean,
Yeah, this is gonna be the only time I do this. I'm
how about
sorry.
this? We get one
Under,
mulligan. We get
under.
one. We
Here,
get one mulligan. If
give
the
me my
other one
mulligan.
convinces, we can change. So you're using your mulligan
I'm
right
using
away.
mine immediately. I think I've teased that I was gonna take them under. I just once you get to 88, I
Yeah.
literally flipped here on the spot. But 80, they're gonna win 85 games. I agree with you. I think you put together the perfect pitch, and realistically, how about one pitching injury? I know they already had some injuries, but if Rodon or Freed go down, you don't have much reliability in that rotation at all. But the biggest thing for me is that a team that usually likes to make that in-season acquisition it's going to be really hard for them to do that. They don't really have the assets. And maybe a couple of their better assets, definitely one of their best assets, and Chase Hampton is out for the season with Tommy John. So you're not really going to be able to move him either. Probably not going to move Lombard, but him alone isn't going to be able to do anything for you. So yeah, I'm taking my mulligan. I'm going under on this one. I can't do it. I tried to talk myself into it.
We're
It's just there's not enough there.
Yeah, there just isn't enough there. All right, next up, looking at last year's standings, would be the Baltimore Orioles, and their win total is at 86 and a half, and that has also come down from 88 and a half. Not necessarily because of multiple injuries. I just think that some bettors, kind of like how we speak here on the Just Baseball show, have gotten a little bit tired of these Orioles. Not in a sense that we don't think they're going to be a very good team. It's just they haven't fully seized the moment. They could have made the trade for Garrett Crochet, right? You just mentioned Kobe Mayo and him getting sent down. Like they have a lot of prospects who are just sitting ducks, and they didn't really come in and fix this rotation, especially with Grayson Rodriguez starting the year on the IL. Their rotation looks like Eflin, Morton, Kramer, Tomoyuki Sagano, and Cade Povich. They do have a good bullpen, and they do have a good offense. 86 and a half. It's tough. Were you out with the Orioles?
So I'm frustrated with them. I don't love them as a World Series contender, but in terms of a regular season team, I still am going to go with the over. There's a team that just is you feel like you can almost pencil in for 90 wins still. And I know they lost Corbin Burns, and I know that they continue to stockpile 4 or 5 starters like it's their job. But at the same time, when you're enduring the marathon that is a season, that actually is kind of what helps you hover around the mid 80s. And then you have one of the best players in Major League Baseball in Gunnar Henderson. Lineup wise, they're incredibly deep. I keep hearing nothing but great things about Adley Rutschman just being healthy and feeling good. And I mean, remember how good he was the before last year. And it wasn't like he was a disaster last year, but I think he could play at a top two. He could be the best catcher in baseball next year, right? So like this is a guy that was a 2.8 WAR guy last year that I think if healthy and bouncing back could play like a superstar. And now you've got a duo there that can really make a difference. The rotation's not going to be one that you want, yeah, I think in the playoffs at this point. But at the same time, I do think it's one that they have enough arms where if guys go down, they've got 7 5 starters at least. So I do think that helps keep the floor a little bit high, and they're gonna mash. So Felix Bautista being back as well, I can talk myself into this team still hanging around the upper 80s. And I just, as much as I don't love them as a World Series team, the depth that they have and still some of the top end talent, I still think that they're can really easily grab 88 wins.
I agree. It's so funny. I have the Yankees predicted for 87 wins. I did my own projections, and I have the Orioles exactly at 87 wins. So when they were at 88 and a half, I was actually thinking about taking the under. But a 2-win drop down to 86 and a half actually has me showing a smidge of value on the over. Unfortunately, Gunnar Henderson is going to start the year on the IL with a strained intercostal. It's like on his side. But he will be back, I think, in the first couple of weeks. This rotation isn't great, but the offense is really good, and then the bullpen is going to come in and really help. And if Jackson Holliday takes a next step, if Tyler O'Neill can replicate what he did in Boston, hitting 31 home runs, because of course they lose Corbin Burns, they lose Anthony Santander, but if Grayson, when he comes back, can take a little bit of a step up, if Zach Eflin can still be a stud, and we're talking about the Yankees probably won't make that deadline move. Sooner or later, Mike Elias is going to make that move. Makes
Yeah.
all the sense in the world for them to trade with the Marlins, bringing in Sandy Alcantara. They could make that trade and not really feel it. So I agree with you. I'm at 87, so I'm a slight over, but it's hard to say over and then look dead in the eyes of this rotation again with Eflin, Morton, Kramer, Sagano, and Povich. It's just like, but if you can get beyond the pitching, if you could take those blinders off, it's still a really well-rounded team.
And what the one thing with the pitching though is it's not going to be atrocious where it's like, oh, they have who's going to fill the 4 and 5 spot. Like at worst, they're going to have some guys going out there and giving them a low fours, maybe mid fours, but at least you're going to have guys going out there and eating innings. And this offense can bang with the best of them. So They're going to be able to hang in ball games. I also just like that how deep the lineup is as well, where if somebody goes down, you have Kobe Mayo waiting in the wings. Samuel Basayo is potentially ready to go. You still have Kerstad on the bench. They signed Laureano, who's a good bench piece there as well. Gary Sanchez on the bench. Like this is could be one of the better benches and then like extended benches in baseball. And if we're talking about the marathon that is a season, yeah, I don't love them for a World Series pick or to make a playoff run, but I do like them to endure 162 and just hang around somewhere near where they were last year. I think just 86.5 is just too low.
I agree, especially just, going back to the bullpen to wrap this one up, getting Felix Bautista back, but also you still have Yennier Cano, you still have Sir Anthony Dominguez. Keegan Aiken was a really solid arm for them last year.
Kittredge should be back at some point, right? It was arthroscopic knee surgery in March. I wonder, I mean, him as your seventh inning guy or sixth inning
Yeah,
guy.
he might be more of a fifth inning guy for this team. I mean, they still got Sionel Perez, again, Gregory Soto, and you still have Albert Suarez as kind of that long man type.
Mhm.
So if one of those arms does go down, he provided a lot of valuable innings for the Orioles last year. So I'm not saying that this team, like, I'm not super excited for the Orioles in 2025, but I think the expectations have just gotten a little bit too low, and
Yeah.
this is a slight over. Do you think
Well, like,
87 is probably fair at 86 and a half? That's a good projection.
yeah, I mean, like Kyle Gibson, right? It's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, again, another guy like that. But if he throws 170 innings at a 4.24, they're going to win a lot of games he starts. Like
Yeah.
that's this offense will win a lot of games that he starts. So Gibson being that fifth or sixth guy essentially too. I don't like that in big spots where you're playing a 7 game series, but when you're surviving for 162 games, that's they're going to be able to win 88 games I think this year.
I agree. All right, let's move on to the Boston Red Sox, who finished 81 and 81 last year. And this year, their win total is at 86 and a half. And that now has raised. It opened around 84 and a half. And this is one of my bets. You can also find it, on Futures Wave Part 1. This is one of my favorite teams. Spoiler alert, I'm going to pick them to win the division. This team is absolutely loaded. And I can get into a full conversation about it, but I want to throw it over to you because I already did a full ass
Yeah.
video on the Red Sox.
I mean, I love the Sox this year too. I mean, if you look at one liability, it's probably the bullpen, but I'm confident in their ability to address that if needed, especially with just the trade capital that they have. But also, I do think they have some intriguing arms and bounce back candidates still in the fold there. But when you look at where the rotation's at now, where you have a Cy Young contender, which is what they've really been missing in terms of just having that Chris Sale level pitcher that they had when they won the World Series, even though Sale, there were some ups and downs, but just having that guy that can take the ball and dominate for you. But now the depth that they have as well, I think really does help. And I know that depth is thin at the present moment because Bayo's banged up and Cutter Crawford's banged up and Giolito's banged up, but all those guys look like they should be back pretty quickly. And those are your back end of the rotation arms, and you have Quinn Priester still, and Richard Fitz looks like he could be an interesting option for them. This offense could be as good as any in baseball, especially with the addition of Bregman. And they have 3 prospects that all could potentially help. I think Campbell and especially Roman Anthony are the 2 guys that actually I think you can really sharpie in at some point this year. But you never know with Marcelo Meyer. Trevor Story's healthy now. I love where this team is at, and they have so many different ways to be able to be very good. But now with Roman Anthony, I think looking like a potential, I think rookie of the year candidate if he gets the run. I don't know where they fit him in or when or whatever, but it's a great problem to have. If somebody goes down, you have the number 1 prospect in baseball ready to go. Or if you ever just need a spark, you have the number 1 prospect in baseball ready to go. So I think there's a chance that this lineup could be as good as any in Major League Baseball.
I totally agree. And I also think that this team is much improved defensively because the Red Sox have been a horrific defensive team over the
Mm-hmm.
past couple of seasons. But now you finally have a Trevor Story who is healthy at shortstop. And we'll see how long that lasts, but he's healthy to start
He's
the
there.
season. And he is a well above average defensive shortstop, a spot that the Red Sox haven't really had an above average defender when Trevor Story is out. And if Christian Campbell makes this team and he is the starting second baseman, he can certainly pick it at second. And then you have Cedon Rafaela fielding down balls in center. That's an excellent up the middle defensive trio. And then you bring in Bregman to play third, and
Huge
it's good.
upgrade.
Huge upgrade because Devers came out. Everybody saw that he was like, I'm not moving off third. Fuck that. I ain't doing that shit. I understand. Like, he got paid a boatload of money. He is the face of the Red Sox. That is his position. He's even talked about, how getting back in the field then carries over to the box, or at least it helps him, right? It helps him stay loose, but he's willing to play some more DH, potentially maybe some first base, but Bregman at third base certainly helps the team too. And Casas, I wouldn't say. We got your dog coming in.
Oh my gosh.
We got your dog coming in too. We got a little introduction. We got a little. Uh, so, yeah. Sorry for all those listening on audio. We got a armed dog
Kona
coming
Kona just joined the show.
just to say what's up. But again, just talking about the defense too. Like, there really isn't a weak defender on this team outside of Tristan Casas, and
Which
that's
is
your
first
first
base. Like,
baseman.
yeah. And then that's, I agree with you, is a huge, huge asset to where this team was last year. You have better pitching, you have better defense, and the offense, which still swung it well last year, is probably better as well. You're probably in a pretty good spot. And having Duran in a corner, he was a great center fielder last year. Like, the defensive side of things here, Willier's really good in the other corner. This is a team that actually could end up going from not good defensively to not only better, but could be one of the better defensive teams if you look at outs above average or defensive run saved, depending on how they decide to deploy the starting nine. And even like Roman Anthony, if he gets up in a corner, is a great defender as well. So that on top of the fact that the pitching is improved, I really think the only hole that you could potentially poke in this team would be bullpen liability. But even then, you've got Aroldis Chapman, who has just done it year over year here, where he's at least a good swing and miss bat or arm, excuse me. You have Liam Hendricks, who I think is a really exciting bounce back candidate for this year, and is another guy who's just done it when he's healthy and on the mound. I love Justin Slayton. Whitlock, when healthy, is a dog. They need probably another arm or two for me to feel a bit more comfortable, but I don't look at that bullpen and say that's going to do them in. And if it does start to be a problem early in the year, I have a good feeling they're going to address that.
Exactly. And the Red Sox have such a good system. What's the easiest thing to add at the deadline? A bullpen arm, right? They could go out and add a high leverage reliever. So if that's really the one weakness, and also, I really want to save my Garrett Crochet pick for our player awards episode, a full breakdown on him, which I will. But what I will say is right now, I think Garrett Crochet might be the turn in a better season for the Red Sox than the Red Sox have seen since prime sale, and maybe even
Yeah.
beyond that. Like, he in spring training, he's got 30 strikeouts in 15 innings. He's pitching to a 0.87 ERA or something. He looks diabolical.
Yep.
Red Sox fans are going to watch him every fifth day and be like, they're in extension talks right now. Give him anything. It's
Blank
almost
check.
like Blue Jays fans right now with Vladdy or something. It's
Yeah.
just give him anything he wants. And no wonder they're far apart right now in extension talks, because I think Garrett Crochet is like, pay me like one of the best pitchers in baseball because I'm
Yeah.
going to win the Cy Young this year. And I think he's right. I think he's
I,
going to win the Cy
I
Young.
think they're going to watch him do it for 6, 7 starts this year, and then they're going to say, "All right,
All right.
we'll meet your price here." And I wouldn't be shocked if. And I know that teams don't like to, and players don't like to negotiate during the year, but I could so easily see it happen where it's like, "All right, we'll meet that price." He might say the price went up, but we'll find out. But I agree with you. I think with that edge too to him, kind of pitching for that extension. Uh, and being that ace now, he's got to feel so invigorated. Being that ace on a playoff team potentially, I think is a really good spot to be. But the depth in general is just so much better from a pitching perspective. I think this is a pretty easy over. And we're not even mentioning Masataka Yoshida. If somebody goes down, like that's a bat that you can plug in that's proven to be at least an above average hitter. And I don't even know where he fits into the fold here. If Rafaela struggles, you slide Duran right back into center again, where he's a great defender and was one of the best all around outfielders in Major League Baseball last year. So they have so many different contingency plans that I struggle to see a way where this team does not win upper 80s.
I have the highest projection in this division on the Red Sox at 89 wins. I have them
Yep.
winning the division, which we will talk about again when we recap the division and give our division picks. That's just an early spoiler. Next up on our list, the Tampa Bay Rays, who finished 80 and 82 last year. But funny enough, based on their run differential, their expected win-loss record from last year was 74 and
No.
88. So, based on some one-run game luck, based on their run differential, 80 wins, they were lucky to even be there. And this year, the Rays have again an 80.5 win total. Shane McClanahan, thankfully,
Yeah,
was
yeah, that was scary.
saved. He was pitching in spring training. He throws, I think, a fastball. I assume Peyton can edit the video, on top of this for all those listening on YouTube. It looked really bad. All of us, our hearts dropped, right? We want to see Shane McClanahan. He's one of the most talented pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. Thankfully, it's just nerve damage in his triceps. Would
No,
I
it's just
get that right?
nerve inflammation.
Hmm.
So like it looked like his arm just like popped,
Yeah.
like the way that he reacted immediately. But it sounds like it was just nerve inflammation in his tricep. So they said he may not even miss much time, maybe just a turn or two around the rotation, and he'll be back. So after two TJs, that's terrifying. But it sounds like he crisis averted for now, and I mean that's absolutely huge for the Rays, but also just more importantly for a guy that has worked so hard to get back from second TJ and is one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball when he's on the mound.
So for the Tampa Bay Rays, this one was one of my hardest. My projection for the Rays is 81. So technically, it is a slight over for me. And then when I look at the roster, like I'm moderately intrigued. I just don't know how many of these players are going to be on the team come trade deadline, kind of depending on how they're playing. Like Brandon Lau, excuse me, we probably expect to be moved, especially when Ha-Seong Kim gets returned. Yandy Diaz, does he stay on the team all year? They have Danny Jansen. Is that a deadline candidate to be flipped, or is that going to be their starting catcher for the entire season? Christopher Morel, if he has a good first half, is that somebody they want to keep? We know that the Rays, they don't operate, like we might just expect a normal team to do. Even if they're winning, they know that they can bring up guys from their minor league system, right? Curtis Mead was destroying baseballs in spring training. They can easily plug him into one of the positions if they are willing to trade these guys. So, the offense I think has potential, but again, it's hard to know who's going to be on the team. The starting rotation, again, tons of potential, but this team has also not proven that they can stay healthy, especially in the starting rotation. So I hope all these guys are going to be healthy, but I think it's too ambitious to just expect that they're all going to make it throughout the entire year. And the bullpen, I don't even care who's in it. I know they're going to spawn arms. Edwin Uceta is a perfect example. He went from a relative no name to pitching to an ERA under 2 last year. This is based on right now, I think they could win 84 games, but I just don't know exactly how they're going to operate come deadline time. But I'm still fine taking the over. But again, no way am I actually betting it.
No, this is another tough one, but I think there's a lot of bounce back candidates on this team, and a Yandy Diaz, who still I think has plenty left in the tank and should be better this year. Junior Caminero is just a breakout guy who didn't really get to play as much as he could have last year because of injuries, and it was a later call up. I think Aranda is a breakout candidate, especially with the short porch and right at Steinbrenner Field. I love the fit for Danny Jansen, a guy that pulls the ball in the air at a high degree, and you have a short porch and left. I do like a lot of, and I've loved Curtis Mead for a long time. He just hasn't had enough runway at the big league level, and looks like he may have found something here in spring training and made the team. But I think the biggest asset to this team is going to be the pitching, as it always has been, but maybe as much as ever. If Rasmussen is healthy, and he looked great last year when he was on the mound after coming back from a third elbow surgery, but Rasmussen every time he's on the mound is great, and he looked as advertised after coming back last year. I think Shane Baz is going to be a guy that now further removed from his Tommy John should be great. Pepiot was solid when he was on the mound. Taj Bradley took a big step forward last year. Littell is a consistent arm. Then you have other guys in the minor leagues that could come up and help you at a certain point. I'm a big Ian Seymour guy. I think that's somebody that could end up being a good rotation piece for them. Like they are really deep in the rotation department. We'll see what they get out of Joe Boyle in one way or another. Joe Rock is even a decent depth arm, and then that bullpen is good. Like Fairbanks is Fairbanks, who sets as one of the best arms in any bullpen right now. But I love Mason Montgomery. The guy's throwing fuel from the left side. I think he's becoming one of the more intriguing relievers in baseball as well. When they get Kim back, I think that really does elevate the floor. I'm going to go with the over on this team. And it's one, because the Rays just always seem to find a way, but two, because I just think the pitching is going to be ridiculous this year. And they have some breakout candidates. And I do think you need to rely on Caminero taking a huge step forward this coming year, but I really think he can.
All right, let's move on to the Toronto Blue Jays, the last team in the division. So just another reminder, they went 74 and 88 last year. If you looked at their expected, win loss record, it was 73 and 89. What's your read on here with the Blue Jays? Because right now their win total is 79 and a half. So everybody thinks, or at least, BetMGM thinks that they are going to take a step forward from last year. And it's hard for me not to agree, but do you think 79 and a half is a little bit too big of a jump now from 74 and a half last year?
It's hard because I think a lot of things worked against him last year, including Bo Bichette being unfathomably bad, and I just don't see a way where he's going to be that bad again. Vladdy, I just think is going to go crazy again, given the fact that he's in a contract year. But I think George Springer's like out of gas, and I just wonder what they're going to do there. But maybe somebody else is an upgrade. It's really hard for me because does Santander and Andres Jimenez change much for you? What are you getting out of Max Scherzer? But this team is better. Like that's the thing is it's definitely better. They haven't had a leverage arm like Jeff Hoffman. They definitely didn't have one last year. I don't love the bullpen, but that is still a better leverage arm than you've had. I mean, Romano was a liability. Looks like Dalton Varsho is going to be back earlier than you think. They are going to get Manoah back at some point this year. It's just good pitching depth at this point. We'll see what he does. I do think he's going to come back a little bit more humbled and looking better. I don't know what that necessarily means, but better. As much as I have not liked this team, 79 is a low number for a team that did get better. And I do think will trim some of the fat if they need to. Like I do think if Springer's just brutal this year, they'll probably just eat it at that point. But they have young guys too that could come up and potentially plug in. You hope that Alo Perfito can take the step forward. Alan Roden looks like he could be a guy that ends up getting pretty consistent ABs for them. I think there's some interesting players in the equation here that could end up becoming a little bit more of a contributor than maybe people would expect.
Also, shout out Alejandro Kirk. Signed a 5-year, $58 million
Yep.
extension to be the Blue Jays catcher for a while. And I know when you look at the Blue Jays lineup, it's so top heavy if you expect Bo Bichette to bounce back, which I do. I mean, Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Anthony Santander. That is a great trio of bats if Bo Bichette looks like he has over his previous 4 seasons. If you just discount last year, I'm going to give him a break. I still like Andres Jimenez, not necessarily as a bat, but he's arguably the best defender in Major League Baseball. And if a guy like Alan Roden can step up, or any of these guys, I'm still in on Will Wagner, right? The famous bet that I made, Will Wagner over Junior
I'm an
Guerrero.
Addison Barger truther. I still think he can get up there and do some stuff for them and run into some baseballs. He can play right. He can play third. I think he's a perfect option as well. They have a lot of different guys that could plug in. You mentioned a Will Wagner. It's a bunch of guys that I think could be, you expect to probably most likely be role players, but could end up being solid regulars. And you have enough options to try there. You see who ends up separating themselves. Davis Schneider's had a fantastic spring and he made the team. He was really not himself last year. We've seen him be a phenomenal bat at points. So maybe he bounces back. There's a lot of different options that they can continue to experiment with. And they did add a little bit more just consistency and proven nature with Santander and even a Jimenez, who I didn't love the deal, but at the end of the day, you know that you're at least getting, as you mentioned, one of the best defenders in the game and a guy that's, it was bad offensively last year, but he's still going to be a 3-win player. So I think that does help a lot.
So the Blue Jays open at 76 and a half this offseason and have moved all the way to 79 and a half. I was actually planning on the Blue Jays being one of my overs because I have them projected for 79 wins. So at 76 and a half, I should have just jumped on it. But then it just got bet up so heavily, so early that I was like, okay, I'll take a step back. But the reason that I'm still inclined to look towards the over on the Blue Jays on this show, definitely not a bet, but still inclined to do so. I like every single pitcher in their rotation. I don't love them, but Jose Brios I know is solid. Kevin Gausman I know is solid. Chris Bassett, Bowden Francis, who took a big step last year. Does he replicate that same exact success? Probably not, but is he still a fine pitcher? Yes. And Max Scherzer, there was a little bit of an injury scare there, but he still looked good in spring training in his last start. That's a good rotation. And
He's
then,
been fantastic this spring.
yeah,
He almost looks rejuvenated.
and I
And
hope
I
he's
know
not
it's only
wasting bullets because he is 40 years old.
I know it's only 13 innings, but he's punched out 18 and walked one.
That's a
And I
guy
don't
that,
care. I don't care that it's spring training because it's. I didn't even know if we would just even see this in a bullpen out of Max Scherzer. He was sitting 93.5 and the stuff was jumping and he's pounding the zone. And that's the biggest thing, too. He's not nibbling, like he's filling up the strike zone. So he doesn't need to be Hall of Fame Max Scherzer. If he's a four, that's huge for them. And then I love Jake Bloss as a depth arm. Yariel Rodriguez is still a solid depth arm and a guy that right now would kind of be their swing man. It's a much better pitching situation than they had last year.
especially at the top end of their bullpen. I mean, this bullpen was so bad last year. They ranked 29th in ERA. There are 30 teams here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
But now you bring in Jeff Hoffman, who is one of the better high leverage arms in baseball.
Just raises the floor so much.
Chad Green, Yimi Garcia. I mean, that's a good 7, 8, 9. And the thing that the Blue Jays have that a lot of teams don't is guys who can consistently go 6 innings, right?
Yeah.
Kevin Gosman, Chris Bassett, Jose Brios, they're not going to have ERAs in the low threes. They're probably going to be in the mid to high threes, but they're going to eat innings. So
Yeah.
for those days that Brios goes 6 innings, 3 runs, and hands it off to those 3 arms, they're going to win a lot of those games.
Yeah.
So even though I have a 79 projection on them, 79 wins, and the line is 79.5, I'm going to give the Blue Jays the benefit of the doubt here, especially just because I know it's also Vladdy's walk year.
Yeah.
And I think potentially, like if the Blue Jays are somewhat in it, I mentioned on a previous show that they could potentially give up a Gosman, potentially give up a Bo Bichette. But I was trying to answer a question for unexpected deadline moves. That would mean the Blue Jays are way out of it. I think that Ross Atkins wants to show Vladdy that we could potentially win here. Whether
Well, and he's also GMing for his job too. So like
exactly,
if they're tracking like even if they're 5 games out at the deadline, I still think that he's going to be a guy that's adding if anything. I don't see them being a team that's going to be looking at the long-term vision, especially with the roster that they have. I think it's going to be let's see if we can catch lightning in a bottle here in the second half anyway. So that's the other thing that you got to look at as you mentioned with the over under win totals. A team like the Rays, if they're 6 games out, they're going to sell.
yeah.
A team like the Blue Jays, if they're 5, 6 games out, I don't think they're going to sell.
Yeah. So, and that was going to be my next point is that Ross Atkins is also GMing for his job. So, are we just aligned on every single one of these, or are you going to take
Yes,
one
we
for
are.
the
I
team?
but it'll start changing up. It'll
Okay,
start changing up.
perfect. So I'm putting you down for the over,
Yeah.
and I'm putting myself down for the over as well. All right, before we get into the American League Central, American League West, and then we'll work all the way over to the National League as well, our first break. Okay, let's look at the American League Central, and we are going to start with last year's American League Central champs, the Cleveland Guardians, who finished 92-69. Didn't actually have the best run differential in the division last year. That was held by the Kansas City Royals. But if you looked at the expected win-loss record for Cleveland last year, 90-71. It was a great year, but BetMGM expects them to take a big step back. Their line is 82.5. But what I also want to make clear, the Guardians' win total last year was 78.5, and they outperformed that as well. The Guardians are known for outperforming. They still have this incredibly elite bullpen. We found out what the starting rotation is going to look like, at least 1 through 5. It is Tanner Bibbee's going to start opening day, then Gavin Williams, then Luis Ortiz, then Ben Lively, and not Tristan McKenzie. It's going to be Logan Allen as the 5th starter, with Tristan McKenzie starting in the bullpen. And they also just made a trade for Nolan Jones. They brought him back. Before we just get into the Guardians win total, how drunk are the Rockies?
That's the craziest trade I've seen in a while. I mentioned this on Twitter, but like the Rockies basically rented Nolan Jones for 2 years for the price of 6 years of Juan Brito. And then all they got in addition to the 2 year rental was 4 years of Tyler Freeman, who is not as good as Juan Brito. So it's a wild deal there. I know it was a rough year for Nolan Jones, but he was banged up. I mean, Tyler Freeman is a bench piece. Nolan Jones has the upside, at least, of being a more impactful player. Both are probably role players on really good teams when it's all said and done, but Nolan Jones is a guy that can hit you, that can go 20-20 and has some crazy tools potentially, especially in the outfield. So I love this get for the Guardians because they needed to raise the ceiling a little bit too. And that's a guy that absolutely could do that.
But then you look at the win total at 82 and a half, and they are low on the Guardians, but looking at this roster, like when we talked about it on our division previews, if the Guardians are decent at the trade deadline, don't you think they're trading guys away, even if they're decent? Like, does
I
Lane
think that just
Thomas play the entire year on this team? Does Carlos Santana play the entire year on this team? Maybe one of their starters? I mean, Shane Bieber will be back at some point, which is definitely going to help this rotation. The bullpen is still really good. You put Nolan Jones in this lineup. I still believe in guard ball, and at 82 and a half, it's so tempting to take the over. But why does my gut say under?
I mean, the rotation is a little sketchy. Like you're putting a lot of eggs in the Gavin Williams bounce back basket, and then unlocking something from Luis Ortiz and Ben Lively being a reliable arm and Logan Allen being able to plug in until you get Shane Bieber back. So I get it. Um, I do get it, but I still think this lineup is really solid at the end of the day, and it's just going to be consistent. Quan at the top. Jose Ramirez is one of the best players in baseball. I do think Manzardo takes a step forward. Carlos Santana is going to get on base at a good clip, and a full year of Lane Thomas helps. It does drop off a little bit from there, but I do think Bo Naylor is going to be better this season. I do think Rocchio is going to take at least another half step forward, and I liked what we saw from him at the end of the year in the postseason. And then having Nolan Jones is another just upside piece in there, and at least a platoon option. I think they're going to find a way to win 83, 84 at least. And the bullpen just being what it is and what they do there, I'm going to go with the over, but I don't feel great about it because they're always just a tough team.
Yeah, it's just behind Tanner Bybee, it's a lot of question marks, and it's a lot of fun and intriguing arms, right? Gavin Williams potentially taking the next step. We all see it. We all see the argument, but he has yet to do so. Luis Ortiz was good last year. Does he replicate that? It's again, it's kind of up in the air. And then with Ben Lively, like he was kind of towing the tightrope last year, and not having Tristan McKenzie in this rotation to start the year is slightly telling. And, I got a lot of shit for this. Jack was just making fun of me. I was like, the Guardians bullpen probably takes a step back from one of the best of all time to still potentially the second best bullpen in baseball to the Dodgers. Like, is Gaddis going to put up a 1.57 ERA again? Is Tim Herring going to have
Maybe.
an ERA below two? Is Cade Smith going to have an ERA below two? Is Emmanuel Clase going to put up a 0.61 ERA? I know they brought in Paul Sewald, and you still have Walters, who was great last year. I mean, the guy didn't even allow a run. They bring in Jacob Junis as kind of the long man. The bullpen is still going to be amazing. But is it fair to say they might take a step back after
I mean, it
all
might be hard to replicate arguably the best bullpen season in Major League history.
like
So I can
75
understand that.
innings,
Yeah.
75 innings each for all four of them? Like that's a lot of wearing on these arms. I think if the bullpen takes a little bit of step back, I think if the offense is good, but then potentially if they're hovering around at the deadline, they might trade off a couple of bats. If one or two of these arms don't take a step forward, they're probably a 500 team.
It's possible.
I'm sticking with my gut feeling on this one for the Guardians, even though I've been all over the Guardians for years. I love this team. They've made me a ton of money, but I got them predicted at 82. And with the Blue Jays, I went over slightly and I didn't like it, but I'm sticking to my projections. I'm going Guardians under 82 and a half wins.
I get it. I'm a Gavin Williams believer here. I think he takes a huge step forward, or at least getting back to where he was when he was coming up through the minor leagues and one of the best pitching prospects in baseball now that he's healthy and settled back in. But I can definitely see where it happens that way. I'm gonna go over on this one.
Okay. So I got you down for the over on the Guardians at, again, 82 and a half. I have the under. Moving on to the Kansas City Royals. They're predicted excuse me, expected win-loss record was 91 and 71 based on the run differential, but they went 86 and 76. And now their current win total sits at, where are you, Royals, at 82 and a half, the same exact number on the Guardians. And for me, I'm still pretty bullish on this Royals team. And I spoke about how important it is that they brought in Jonathan India, not just because they needed another good bat, but they needed a leadoff guy in front of Bobby Witt Jr. And I think I was talking about this with Jack, but you watched plenty of Royals games last year. If you were 5 minutes late to watching a Royals game, Bobby Witt Jr. was up, but there was one out. Like they
Yeah.
really didn't have a leadoff guy. Now they have Jonathan India, who's got a 350 OBP. You put him in the lineup in front of Bobby Witt Jr. Let's say Jonathan India gets on first. Bobby Witt Jr. set his career high in walk rate last year. Now you can't just walk him and get him over to first base. Vinny Pasquantino is currently a little banged up. He might end up starting the season on the IL. I saw a small report that he's just dealing with something right now. But the lineup, I would say, is better than the Guardians, in my opinion. And I feel better about this rotation with Reagan's at the top, with Lugo bringing in Waka. I expect Bubic to take a step forward as well, right? We're only relying on one guy to take a step forward. With the Guardians, it's like we need a lot of you guys to step up. And then they brought in Carlos Estevez this off season to pair with Lucas Urseg. Hunter Harvey comes back healthy. He was the guy that the Royals traded for at last year's deadline, and unfortunately, he only threw maybe a few innings for them before going down with an injury. I think that this bullpen is better. I think that this rotation is solid, and I think the offense is solid. I like the over 82 and a half on the Royals.
It's just too low of a number. I agree with you. And I like the minor league options even that they have from a pitching perspective. Noah Cameron, I think, is one of the more underrated arms in minor league baseball right now and was added to the 40-man roster to be protected from the Rule 5. If they need an arm, Noah Cameron is like the first man up and can plug right in. They're going to get Alec Marsh back at some point too. Who knows what they can get from Kyle Wright, but that is another depth arm as he gets back from shoulder surgery that he had well over a year ago. Um, I look at the lineup. I agree. It's better and it's a little bit more balanced and deeper. I do think Melendez gets a little bit more going for him this year than he had last year. And even just some guys that were banged up at points. Michael Massey was having a really solid year and missed a good amount of time. So getting a full season of Massey, I am concerned about what it may look like from Salvador Perez this year. Like, is he going to be able to replicate what he did last year as a 35-year-old? Maybe not. But as you mentioned, like that's where it's on Vinny Pasquantino and some of these other guys to take a step forward. And I do think Reagan's has kind of proven himself as one of the better left-handed pitchers in Major League Baseball, and Lugo is as reliable as they come. They've addressed the bullpen a little bit to where I do think it's better. I think this team is easily in the mid 80s in terms of win total.
Yeah, I agree with you. I guess that's just kind of it with the Royals.
Yeah.
Like, I think at 82 and a half, like, just for anybody wondering, I have the Royals projected for 84 wins. So I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the division. And I know we said that we were going to give our division picks. I think both of us picked the Red Sox. And
Yeah.
then this division could end up being the Royals, but we got to keep going down the teams list. Next up is the Detroit Tigers. So the Tigers, their win total is one win higher than both the Guardians and the Royals at 83 and a half. Basically, Aram, do you trust the last 2 months of what the Tigers built? Because this team was under 500 for most of the season, then went on a Cinderella run to make the playoffs, and we all loved the chaos. But most of their season was under 500 baseball. What's your read right now on the Tigers?
They're a tough one, but they did get better from where they were at. I do have concerns. So, like, Trey Sweeney, I don't think is an everyday shortstop at the big league level. And then are you sliding Javier Baez back over to shortstop at that point? I think it's clear that he's not an everyday shortstop at the big league level. Uh, but at the same time, you add Gleyber Torres, Riley Green is a candidate to take a big step forward. Parker Meadows is going to get back or come back after what is it, upper arm inflammation, so he'll get back at some point relatively early in the season. You still have Tarek Skubal. You bring back Flaherty. Mize looks really good. Job is one of the best pitching prospects in baseball. I think that they added enough after what was this phenomenal finish to the season to where they can absolutely still be in the mid 80s and hang around.
Yeah, it's funny. I have the Guardians projected at 82, and I have the Tigers projected at the same line. I guess I'm worried about this offense, and I'm also worried that the defense might be pretty bad. Like defensively, Colt Keith is going to play first base, and you could say, well, he was a middle infielder, maybe he can adjust, but also learning a position is not easy. Gleyber Torres, I'm glad that they added a bat, but he's one of the worst defensive second basemen in baseball. You said it yourself, Trey Sweeney potentially at shortstop. And then who's playing third? Is it Andy Ibanez? Is it, Veerling when he comes back? Like, it's not a great defensive infield. And just in general, it's not that great of a lineup. Like, the best hitters in it, Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter, I really like those two. Cole Keith, I like. But if Cole Keith is the third best hitter in your lineup, I just don't feel good about it. And then I like the rotation, right? Obviously, Scooble is the man. He's my number one pitcher in Major League Baseball. But I don't know how Flaherty is going to do. I like Reese Olson. I think Jackson Jobe could take a step. But again, I don't know how many innings he's going to throw. And Casey Mize looks good in spring, but he's shown good flashes before and then just hasn't fully put it together. And in terms of rotation depth, right? Alex Cobb is coming back from hip inflammation. Sawyer Gibson Long he had elbow surgery. I think he'll be back by this year. He got elbow surgery, the internal brace, April of last year. So he should help them at some point. But Ty Madden strained rotator cuff. Jose Urquidy's Tommy John surgery.
He's out for the season, I think.
Yeah.
But I
So,
do like Kyler Montero as a plug and play guy.
yeah.
Reese Olson has been really solid though when he was on the mound.
Yeah.
And Job could, I think, is a huge X factor. Of course, I think the rotation should be fine. The offense, I get, and I could be concerned about too, where they're going to give Torque run again, right? And he's see what it looks like there. I'm not going to hold my breath. They just added Manny Margot. Okay, I do think that getting Meadows back is going to be huge, and that's a guy that also could be a huge X factor if he's providing above average offense with the defense that he provides. But also, Kerry Carpenter missed half the season last year, and so I think just being able to have Kerry in the lineup more regularly will definitely help. And I assume they're going to play him more consistently against lefties now too, which should be good. But I could see the offense absolutely struggling because there is a lot of uncertainty outside of those several guys.
So I'm going to take the under on 83 and a half. Like I said, I have them projected for 82 wins. I still think that they're going to be over 500. I think they're going to be a fine team this year, but I'm going under 83 and a half. What do you think?
I don't love it, but I'm going to lean towards the over just because
Okay.
I do really like the pitching and the bullpen solid as well. But I don't feel great about it at all.
What I will say is you have chosen every single over except the Yankees, which I convinced you to the under. So you got to start picking some unders because not every team in the American League is going to outperform. That's it's for everybody listening too. We have to pick our spots. Like not every
Yeah.
team is going to go over. So we could talk about what could be, but when making projections, some of these teams are going to underperform, maybe even slightly, right? If the Tigers win 83 games, that's a fine season, but that's still going under their win total. So I'm going Tigers under, Arms going Tigers over. Next up is the Minnesota Twins at 83 and a half. And I feel like you'll talk yourself into an under here.
I don't need to talk myself into it. Trust me. I got my unders ready to go.
The Twins went 82 and 80 last year. They actually ended the season terribly. They went 2 and 8 in their last 10 games, but they still finished with a positive run differential at just +7. Their expected win-loss record was 82 and 80. Again, the Minnesota Twins win total is at 83 and a half. I'm going to be more bullish on the Twins, so let me hear the bearish pitch on the Twins.
I don't think they're going to stay healthy. I just don't think that this is a team that you can really rely on to put it together. Uh, you have so much really circled into Correa playing a full season, Buxton playing 100 games again. And even then, like, look at the rest of the lineup. Is Matt Wallner going to duplicate what he did? Maybe, but I'm not holding my breath for that. You can have Jose Miranda getting regular reps again. I've liked him, but another guy that's been banged up plenty in his career. Ty France is going to be getting a lot of ABs. Edouard Julian, who they didn't even really want playing that consistently at the big league level last year, is going to be getting a lot of run as well. Does Willie Castro duplicate what he did last year? Maybe. I don't know. But I just think there's too much swing and miss, and there's too many injuries throughout this lineup. I think this lineup can get pretty ugly pretty quick. And Russ Lewis is already hurt again. You're probably rolling out Austin Martin a good bit this season as well. I just don't think it's a very good team if really a couple guys go down. And I mean, that seems to be inevitable at this point.
I totally understand that argument, but what I will say is so the Tigers were a below average team up until the last 2 months, and the Twins were a well above average team up until the last 2 months, and they completely cratered. I just think that this lineup is too damn good. And I think that the rotation is really solid too. I understand because you're projecting like, well, will Byron Buxton play the whole year? Probably not. Will Matt
Well,
Wallner play the whole year? Probably not. Like I get that. But on paper, if they can somehow put together a somewhat healthy season, like there's enough bats here, even if a couple of guys go down, that I still think that this lineup can hang with the other lineups in the division, right? Like let's say Buxton goes down and let's say Wallner goes down. They still have Correa. They still have Ryan Jeffers, who raked. They still have Willie Castro, who had a great season last year. You know, Miranda, Larnick, I still think can hit as well. It's
did
like
Brian Jeffers rake? He had a 107 WRC
I
plus,
would say he raked for a catcher, and he hit a bunch of home runs too.
1.6 F war.
Yeah, maybe raked is a little bit too much for Ryan Jeffers. What I will say is Fangraphs got him at 113 this year for a projection.
I just this lineup is who are you really confident in this year?
Correa, I'm really confident in turns in a really healthy, great year.
So the guy that you're most confident in, you're not confident about being available.
No, I'm confident about Correa being available.
How can you be?
I mean, he did
Based
play
on what?
in 2022. He played 135 games. In 2023, he played over 130 games with the Twins, and then last year he played half a season, but was electric. So if you look at his 3 years with Minnesota, he's been reasonably healthy. So I'm willing to believe that he can
Okay.
play another 130 games this year. And if Matt Wallner can play more than 80, if Trevor Larnach can play 100, I'm not asking for a ton. But
Those
so
those are your
that,
three guys.
I mean, no, there's more guys. Like, again, I think Ryan Jeffers is going to have a pretty solid year. I think Willie Castro is going to have a pretty solid year. I think Jose Miranda is going to be a fine bat. And Brooks Lee is going to come back, and I think he's going to be fine too. Like, this is one of the only lineups where Fangraphs has a 100 WRC plus projection or higher on every single person in the lineup.
Yeah, I
Now
think
they
that's
have Ty France at 112. I don't know where they got that number, so my projections would not share that. But I have the Twins at 84 wins. I mean, the Twins were getting hurt last year, and they were well above average until they cratered over the last 2 months. If they can do what they did in the first 4 months of the season, then play 500 baseball, it's probably an 84 win team, especially when we know that the rotation is really solid and it has a ton of depth. I mean, Pablo Lopez, I still think is a stud. He's 185 innings every single year. Joe Ryan's been hurt, but if he can throw 150 this year, we'll be really happy. Bailey Ober is damn solid. And Simeon Woods Richardson and Chris Paddock, I don't love, but I do like David Festa, who's going to start the year in the minor leagues. Hopefully he gets called up at some point. And Zebby Matthews is a guy that they can fill in as well. And then the bullpen is awesome. I mean, the bullpen is fantastic. This probably, Fangraphs has them ranked as the number one bullpen in baseball. I'm not willing to go that far because how can you say the Dodgers aren't the best, or at least the Guardians aren't the best? But I think the Twins could have a top five bullpen in baseball this year. I'm buying into it. I never buy into the Twins. Let me buy into them once
all
because
you.
I'll buy into them this year. I'm
You can have
always
them.
on the other side with the Twins, but this year, at some point, they got to put together a slightly healthier year. And if they do, this roster is good enough to win 84 games.
I just Pablo, he's awesome. You have these stretches, and then he still settles at a 4, and you're like, ugh. And Joe Ryan, the availability side of things, I I don't know if I'm a Simeon Woods Richardson believer. I do love that Festa is going to just get in there and be that 5 once somebody goes down or if Chris Paddock is struggling. But I just don't know if the rotation is enough of an asset to offset what I think could be a lineup that gets really frustrating. I do agree with the bullpen side of things, though. It's going to be great. That helps. I'm still going under, though. I just don't really like this team.
But again, like this Twins team was hurt, right? Last year, their offense, they finished 11th in OPS still.
Yeah,
They can still hit. The the starting pitching, like you're right. Paulo Lopez pitched to a 4.08 ERA. But the underlying metrics all said he's still the mid threes guy that he was in his previous 2 seasons, right? 3.7, 3.6, around that. I believe in it. Maybe stupidly, but I believe in it. I'm going with the Twins over. But it's good. We're differing on this. But do you think that the Twins, like, do you think they even reach 80, or where are you at when you say under?
yeah, they'll probably get 80 because they've. I think they have a bunch of arms that are going to average out for 4 ERA in the starting rotation. Bullpen accentuates that, and I think gets them to an overall solid pitching staff. But I really don't have much faith in this offense. I think Warner's a regression candidate. He swings and misses. He struck out 36% of the time last year. I just don't have a ton of confidence there. And I just don't know if Edward Julian's a big bounce back candidate. He struck out 34% of the time when he was in the show. So I don't like Ty France. I just, and if Buxton is not playing 100 games, I don't know. I don't like the offense much at all. And Brooks Lee's back is already bothering him again. Royce Lewis is already hurt. I don't have a lot of confidence in the offense.
That's totally. I understand where you're coming from, and I totally get anyone who's listening where it's like, Peter, how could you believe in this team that just gets injured every year? I'm kind of on the sense of it's got to stay somewhat healthy one of these seasons. I'll pick it this time. And if not, we'll never talk about the Minnesota Twins and all of their upside ever again. Is that fair? If they
That's
don't
fair.
hit it this year, I'm out. I'm out until some major changes happen. All right, let's get to last but certainly not least, because I think this is the Just Baseball Show squad ride. Chicago White Sox. I bet them over 53 and a half wins. They're now at 54 and a half. People are starting to love the Chicago White Sox. They're coming off the worst season ever since the 1962 Mets or something like that, where they went 40 and 120. I mean, this White Sox team went 41 and 121, but with a minus 306 run differential, their expected win loss was 48 and 114. They went an abysmal 13 and 29 in 1 run games. Everything that could go wrong for the Chicago White Sox did. But now I don't think that the White Sox are going to win 70 games, but I think they're going to win 60. And I think White Sox baseball is going to be much more fun to watch just because you're going to see a lot of the players that the White Sox have been adding in exchange for a lot of their stars that they have been trading away, right? Sean Burke gets the nod for opening day, a guy with really good stuff who I already wrote about and I'm excited about. Davis Martin adding the kick change. He's looked nasty. Shane Smith is another exciting arm. And Jonathan Cannon is more command over stuff, but maybe he can be okay. And Martin Perez is Martin Perez. And now this bullpen, like, it's a lot of guys who are just kind of getting a shot here, but some of them have exciting stuff. I expect a relative bounce back from Luis Robert. I don't expect him to replicate a 5 win season, but can he be a 3.5 win player? I still have that faith in him. Andrew Vaughn, just be average, please. Like, Talkman, Rojas, they added a couple of guys. Of course, they're going to be gone at the deadline. Benintendi, if they can find a trade partner. Lenine Sosa comes in. Of course, they have a slew of minor leaguers that I'm sure you're going to talk about who will eventually debut for this team, especially in the rotation as well, with two of the best pitching prospects in baseball. Both of them are left-handed and two of the best left-handed pitching prospects in baseball. So they got plenty coming up the pipeline. Talk to us about the White Sox youth movement.
I just hope that I don't know if it's going to be able to help them much this coming season. Like, how quick are they going to run Noah Schultz out there? I don't know. How quick are they going to run Hagen Smith out there? I don't know. But I like both those guys a lot, and I do think that they can help. But Hagen Smith also just got teed off on in spring training, so like he's still a prospect, and he's still a guy that really still needs to make his pro debut. He's barely really thrown. I think that rotation can be better than expected, but the more I look at this lineup,
It's
it
horrible.
it's really freaking bad. And I'm gonna be riding on the over like from a rooting perspective, but I might have to take this under here. I like Mike Talkman, Luis Robert, Andrew Benintendi, Andrew Vaughn, Miguel Vargas, Josh Rojas, Lenine Sosa, Michael A. Taylor, Corey Lee. Colson Montgomery looks like he may not be ready to get up there and help. And then I mean, I like Colson needs to figure it out in AAA first. And he's been struggling and has didn't even really look great in the fall league when I saw him. I know there were some flashes, but I didn't think it was great overall. Maybe Brooks Baldwin, maybe Chase Mydraw. Uh, I'm gonna go. I wanted to go over. I'm gonna root for it. I, I'm gonna take the under in this one. They win 53 games this year.
So much for the squad ride, huh? I guess I'm just on an island by myself. I have them projected for 57 wins. I mean, I remember last year, it's not exactly the same because I think the A's had more intrigue, but the A's were coming off one of the worst seasons of the 21st century. Their win total was at 50 and a half. And we were talking about all the young guys who could potentially come up and make an impact. And we all just went with the over. And they won 69 games. It was a 19 game improvement. Like, there are just some things that were incredibly unlucky for the White Sox and just straight up statistical anomalies. I mean, the White Sox, when playing their division last year, went 10 and 42.
Yeah, because they're terrible.
But they're not going to go 10 and 42 against the division again. Like, 13 and 29 in one run games. They're going to get a little bit luckier in that category. And I think some of the young guys are going to perform here. And it could be guys that, we don't know who's going to break out, right? We can sit here now and be like, but some guys just overperform. So I'm putting my faith in that. I'm putting the faith in that baseball is a weird sport. And when you're super, super unlucky one year, on top of being terrible, next year you're probably still going to be bad, downright terrible, but maybe a little bit luckier in some situations that were statistical anomalies. That's why I took the White Sox over wins. And I'll still take them over 54 and a half for the show because, again, I got them at 57 wins. It should be a huge bet for me based on my projections, but it's hard
It's
not to share what you're saying.
I do think they ultimately can very easily find a way, but I've also taken so many overs that I think I have to take
That's
just
fair.
White Sox under here as well.
That's fair. All your overs are just going to go into Chicago and sweep them
And
every single time. And
knock them around.
that's what you need. So, all right, that was the National League Central,
American League Central.
or excuse me, American League Central. Who is your division pick? So let's say, um, I'm looking at the division odds right now, and the American League Central, the Twins are the favorite at plus 210. The Tigers are second at plus 250. The Guardians at plus 300. The Royals share that at plus 300. And the White Sox are plus 25,000 to win the division. So I'm thinking, I think the Twins win the division. That is my pick. But for the value, the Royals have the best value at plus 300. Out of those teams, which one do you like?
I think the Royals win the division. I think their pitching is so reliable at this point. They have arguably the best pitcher or best player in Major League Baseball, not named Otani. I think you could put Judge there too, but yeah, I said arguably. Um, they made some improvements. I think they're going to continue to add to this team too as the season progresses. I think they have a little bit more depth. I think the Royals have this division.
Sweet. All right, so that is the American League Central. Let's move on to the American League West. Okay, ending with the American League West, we will start at the top of last year's division with the Houston Astros. Their current win total is 86 and a half. Last year, The Astros went 88-73 with an expected win total around 89 games. This team, like, we want to go over, I think, just because we expect them to continually perform like the Astros of old. But I look at this team and it doesn't quite look as menacing as years prior.
Well, and you have a lot of questions too, right? I mean, you have Jose Altuve playing left field, who now I can't tell if we're getting like trolled sometimes where there's just clips popping up. It's like Altuve dropped another pop fly in the outfield, and spring training video is so limited that I'm like, is this one? Did I already see this one? Is this a new one? It's becoming a little bit concerning there. Of course, he's Jose Altuve, but then you may be experimenting with Cam Smith in the other corner, which I love, by the way. But I mean, that's two guys in each corner experimenting defensively. Christian Walker's been banged up. Like, there's a lot of variables here. And I know you've talked about the pitching staff. I know you're a little bit more concerned about it than I am, but it's still fair to wonder how things look after the top trio there. It's a good team, no doubt about it. And I think that they've used the Kyle Tucker situation and were able to convert it into something that still helps them now. But you could see it being a bit more of a battle maybe than it was last year. Like, you can't just replace Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman.
Yeah, and it's beyond just the starting pitching staff that I'm starting to have issue with. Of course, Framber Valdez is amazing, and Hunter Brown, I expect to take a big leap potentially, in the Cy Young conversation. I think Ronel Blanco really established himself as a solid, middle of the rotation starter. But I'm also used to an Astros bullpen looking menacing, right? When Framber gives you 6, you go straight to Abreu, right, in his prime, and Ryan Presley, and then, of course, Josh Hader. And now they still have Hader and Abreu, but then it gets a little bit thin. It just doesn't feel as scary of a bullpen as well, on top of starting pitching concerns. So I still think that the lineup is going to be solid, right? You lose Alex Bregman, but you bring in Isak Paredes, who is going to pepper the Crawford boxes. You bring in Christian Walker as well to play first base. So the offense is still good, but I'd rather have Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman than Isak Paredes and Christian Walker. And then if I have rotation issues and the bullpen isn't quite as good, I just have them a little bit below, because 86 and a half, like, if this team wins 85, they could still sneak into the playoffs and find a way to be the typical problem that they are in the Houston Astros. But 87 wins, I just don't see it.
It's I can see it because it's the Astros. And they then this is a year where Jeremy Pena somehow makes a leap, or not somehow. I mean, he's obviously very talented, but this is the year he makes another leap forward. He's had an insane spring, by the way. Or Yainer Diaz takes that step towards being an all-star, but I still just think Jake Myers is going to be running like a madman in center field, trying to cover for both corners. And I echo your sentiment with the bullpen. I do want to give a shout out to Luis Contreras. Look out for that guy. Jack sent me a fastball in one of the games that he threw from a data perspective, I don't think I've ever seen an individual fastball that insane from like a vert, extension, release height perspective. I actually think he's going to be pretty nasty this year. But Hader was not good last year. I understand he struck out more than 13 per nine. But when you're paying a closer that much money, he can't have a 3.8. I understand that some of it was bad luck and some home runs sneaking over the Crawford boxes or whatever. He can't have a 3.8, and he's just been so volatile. So, I do see the bullpen potentially being a little bit of a concern. And then, it really depends on what you're getting from if Blanco can duplicate what he did after coming off of the most innings he's ever thrown. And well, I do really like Arrighetti, and I think he's going to be solid. But he did throw to a 4.5 at the end of the day, and I don't know if I love Wisniewski as a 5 at this point. I know McCullers is finally throwing again, but I mean, you're taking any innings from that guy and being happy with it. So it was awesome to see him back on the mound. I I I think 86 and a half is such a perfect line. These 86 and a half lines are killer,
Yeah,
man.
they're tough.
They're tough with these pretty good, or I would say good, but flawed teams. Every team's a little bit flawed. 86 and a half is really, really difficult. I know where you're leaning just off the way that you presented it,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
how confident?
it's funny. My projection for this team is 87 wins. So I should be on the over, but there's something that At some point, the Astros are not going to be quite the Astros of old. And I think it starts to trickle in this year. And this team finishes right around 86 and a half with 85 to 86 games. Another thing that I'm a bit concerned about if I'm betting the over on the Astros, are they going to be active at the deadline? Like, is this right? Maybe they need a bullpen arm. Are they going to be in the sweepstakes for the best high leverage arms at the deadline? Or will they add a filler guy in the middle? Maybe they just figure out a way to bring back Hector Neris for the 12th time, right?
Well,
Like,
he's
is it?
he's a Brave now.
Yeah, true. He might not leave the Braves, but you know what I'm saying, though. Is it going to be someone in that realm? Are they going to add the big bat, right? They're already traded Kyle Tucker. They let go Alex Bregman. So I don't know if they're going to be aggressive to fill holes if there are some. I just think they're going to finish a little bit lower than 86 and a half wins. Give me the under.
It's also one of the weaker farm systems in Major League Baseball, and your best prospect's a guy that you're obviously not trading. He's going to be part of your big league situation here in Cam Smith. DeZenzo's been awesome. I think he's going to be part of the big league equation as well. So I don't really see a way where they could go out and make that substantial trade or really just even a needle moving trade to upgrade. They kind of have what they have here, and I think they wanted to put themselves in a situation where, okay, yeah, we're going to lose Kyle Tucker and Bregman, but trading away Kyle Tucker, we want to still try to bolster this team because we still have freaking a Hall of Famer and Jose Altuve, a potential future Hall of Famer and Yordan Alvarez, and we still have some pieces here. It's the last year with Framber, so on and so forth. But also, if they're not looking great, do they cash in on Framber? You know they're going to listen. They've been listening on Framber for like 2 years now.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a situation where if they're on the outside looking in, not only will they maybe not aggressively push, do they cash in on some of these assets? It wouldn't shock me. I see them winning 84, 85. So I'll go with the under as well.
All right, so we're both aligned there. Let's move now to the next team in the division. Last year, the Seattle Mariners finished 85 and 77 with an expected win-loss record of 89 and 73. On BetMGM, the Mariners win total is 84 and a half, pretty heavily juiced to the over, so they're basically telling you they think the projection is 85 wins, and it's funny enough, my projection for them is 85 wins. I've started to kind of come around to the Mariners this offseason. It's one of the things where I get so upset that they don't make the huge moves, that they aren't building around, the starting pitching staff, and then I realize, I mean, they still have one of the best pitching staffs in Major League Baseball. I'm watching these kick changes from Andres Munoz, thinking to myself, oh no, you're getting better when you've already been one of the best relievers in baseball and they always spawn relievers. Victor Robles, he had a little bit of an injury scare, but I think he's going to be okay. A couple days ago in spring training, I think Julio Rodriguez is going to have a bounce back. I love Cal Raleigh. Randy Rosarina, not the biggest fan, but he's still a pretty good hitter. Luke Raley was pretty damn solid for them last year. It thins out after that, but it's not a bad offense. It's an electric pitching staff and a good bullpen. I kind of like the over. Like, I think this team, I think it's, when we get to the National League side, which will be again in part two of this episode, because people that just baseball show know once Arm and I get talking, it's hard for us to get all these divisions in one episode. We'd be here for 4 hours. But it's kind of like the Giants for me, where the line has gotten a little bit disrespectful. I mean, this team is not worse than last year. I think they're going to win around the same amount of games.
Getting Brash back will be huge, and I'm hoping they'll get a good sized workload for him from this season. I don't know exactly when they're hoping he'll be back, but it seems like they can count on him being back this year. Brash is going to be the one that I'm really interested in if he can get back and help in that bullpen because I am concerned outside of Munoz and Colin Snyder, who was really solid last year. Do you how many guys do you really trust in this bullpen outside of those two?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Gregory Santos guy. You know I am. I love Gregory. So he's what I trust. Absolutely. Munoz, Snyder. Spire has been a really good lefty for them as well. He
Yeah, but
was a
he had
little
like a
bit banged up
five
last year, but
seven. Yeah, he threw like 23 innings only,
yeah.
but the strikeout numbers are great.
Yeah. So there are probably Spire, Santos, Snyder, and Munoz I would trust. And then like Thornton and Saucedo are fine middle of the bullpen type of arms. Like it's not an elite bullpen, but I think it could be in the top 10 bullpens in Major League Baseball. Like last year, they finished ninth in ERA, fourth in WHIP. I think they'll be around those numbers again, maybe a little bit worse, but still in the top 10.
Yeah, I guess that's all they really need to be when you have
Yeah.
that rotation. And it really also on the rotation side just comes down to, can these guys match their inning output, and then can they get a little bit more from Brian Wu? Kirby starting the year with some shoulder inflammation is not ideal, but it's not as bad as I think anything that people were fearing. Right? There's no structural damage. They're being careful. They said Kirby wanted to already be back, and they're like, no, we're going to take our time here, but. That's the thing. If Brian Wu takes the leap that he can take this year, where he can actually be, I think, a guy that's getting down ballot Cy Young votes, and so could Bryce Miller.
Yeah.
I do think Luis Castillo may legitimately be the weakest link, and that's more of a testament to the entire rotation and the fact that just father time might catch up to Luis Castillo a little bit. It's hard to imagine this rotation not winning 85 games,
Yeah.
but they somehow find a way to always hover around that total.
I know. What do you think about the offense? Do you think it's going to be abysmal? Last year, they finished 22nd in OPS as a lineup. Is there a part of you that could see Julio Rodriguez getting back to the 6 win player that he was the previous 2 years before last year? Maybe Randy has a little bit of a hot month here or there where his full season stats look a lot better because he has a 1100 OPS in June or something like that. Victor Robles continues. Luke Raley gets his home runs. Cal Raleigh's still a beast. Like, can I talk you into it at all?
I think so, because also it's another year of Jorge Polanco hitting in that stadium where like maybe he's a little bit better. It wasn't like he was a disaster. It was a 92 WRC plus, but um, if he can just be a little bit above league average, which I mean, Jorge Polanco is more than capable of doing that. Second year there now, very comfortable clubhouse guy. I know they loved him there in that regard. If he's a little bit better as well, like I do believe in the other bats at least putting up something similar or if not better than what they did last year, except for Victor Robles. I'm not saying I don't think Victor Robles will. I just like that's a classic. Like I'm gonna need to see that again, Victor, after all the waiting that we have done for you. But I do think like a Mitch Garver can bounce back. He's been so injured through so much of his career. Like maybe he's a little bit better this coming year, or he's just on the decline. We'll find out. Solano can hit anywhere, and this is kind of the final boss test for Solano to see if he can hit there. You can talk me into this offense being a little bit better, mostly on the back of Julio Rodriguez. Hopefully, this time for real, carrying the strong finish to the season to like a longer and steadier stretch of success this year, which he's 24. Like he can really be the difference maker for this team.
What do you think about their second base situation? Right now it's Ryan Bliss, but they did bring in Donovan Solano. They still have Dylan Moore, who can play a ton of different positions. Do you think Bliss can win this spot? Because right now on Fangraphs on the roster resource, it has Bliss at second, which I'm a little bit surprised about.
Yeah, I think Dylan Moore is become almost a little too underrated at this point. Like he was an above average player last year. He was
Yeah.
a 2.5 win player, and he gave you above average offense and gives you speed. I know that they probably at best want to use him as a super utility guy, but it's probably someone that's been getting a lot of run there. Solano is not the best defender in the world at this point, but I don't think the Mariners are in a position to really care too much about the defense. So that's a guy that even though he didn't play much second base last year, I would be okay throwing him in there at least a few times a week for the offensive benefit potentially if they want to do that. So I do think that they can piece it together. And if Ryan Bliss wins it over those guys, that's great. But I see Bliss as more of a bench option and more in Solano kind of filling in more on the second base side.
All in all, I think the pitching is just too good. Because if the offense is 18th in OPS, They're probably going to win 87 games. They were 22nd in OPS and won 85 games last year.
Yeah.
So 84.5 has just gotten a little bit too low. I'm taking the over. What say you?
I would be a little bit more concerned if they didn't have any arms in the minor leagues that could come up and plug in if somebody gets hurt. But I do still believe, even though it hasn't been the best spring in the world for him, that Logan Evans can get up there and be a five for them. You're hoping that at least Emerson Hancock can be a five. But I have confidence that they can piece it together if someone does go down. But that probably is the biggest concern with them, right? Is like if one of your five starters goes down, like it your strength all of a sudden starts to leak a little bit, where it's every fifth day you've got one starter that may be a disadvantage for you. And if you're at a disadvantage, it's going to be tough with that offense. So I still do lean towards them going over, especially if Matt Brash can get back and help them, and if Logan Evans can end up settling in and being a good sixth arm for them as well. And we'll see what they get from Hancock, but I think at least he can be an innings eater. I'll go over with them too.
Okay, so both of us took the Astros under, and both of us are on the Mariners over. Next up is the Texas Rangers. Last year, they went 78 and 84 with an expected win loss record based on their run differential at 75 and 87. Their current win total is 85 and a half. They have been one of the most hyped teams this offseason. We cannot forget this is the 2023 World Series champions. And you look at the lineup, and that is menacing. And you look at the rotation, and it's question marks everywhere. And then you look at the bullpen, question marks everywhere. So basically, with the Rangers, I think it boils down to this. Are you buying the health and the step ups for guys like Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker, of course, the health of Tyler Mahle, Nathan Eovaldi, and Jacob deGrom? Because I don't think, I mean, the offense, especially adding Jock Peterson in the middle, I mean, they are going to rake.
Yeah. I mean, their bench is Kyle Higashioka, Josh Smith, and Leody Taveras. Like that's a pretty darn good bench too. Those guys could start for a lot of other teams. So, I mean, they're going to mash, and it's just going to come down to availability of a lot of guys too. Josh Young, Corey Seager, are those guys going to be available? Even Adolis, in terms of just being better. I mean, he was definitely a liability last year, but I loved the Berger acquisition. It's a guy that's just going to run into baseballs for you, and it's almost like you're going to forget. I think teams are going to forget, or like fans of other teams are going to forget when you're like getting to the 7-8 spot in that lineup. It's like, oh my gosh, they got a guy that can hit 40 bombs there in their lineup too. Like there's a lot of mashers in there, but of course you want to see Evan Carter put it all together as well. I don't have much question though, because even the variables there are all exciting ones, and you have proven commodities throughout that lineup as well. I'm with you on the rotation. I have very little confidence that Tyler Mahle is going to be able to contribute consistently and be available. It's just been rough for him from an injury perspective, and I think Evaldi is when Evaldi is kind of your tried and true arm here, and I don't mean that as a slight of Evaldi. It's just everything he's been through health wise, where that's like your reliable innings eating arm. That's kind of crazy. So I do have concern there. I think this is probably one of the more polarizing teams, not only in terms of public perception, but in terms of just reasonable outcomes for them. I could see a World Series title. I could see them losing 90 games, and it's all predicated on the pitching. But I will say Jack Leiter has been phenomenal this spring. Of course, I'm going to have the admitted bias towards him, but I mean, him throwing 101
Yeah.
is absolutely amazing. He's working his ass off. I mean, one way or another, he's going to be helping this team, whether it be in that bullpen, or I think he's clearly earned more opportunity to start. But Kumar Rocker hasn't looked perfect, and that's a guy that also has had his injury history. And I think it would be very ambitious to assume that he can throw 120 plus innings. Like, who's throwing the innings here? That's why it's so funny that they added Patrick Corbin, because there is going to be a point in the season where they just need a guy. I don't care what the outcome is. Chris Young's not going to care what the outcome is. They're going to need somebody to just go out there and eventually get 18 outs. And it may mean an automatic loss, but I think that's exactly why they signed Pat Corbin.
Yeah. because their safety blanket in John Gray, right? These Dane Dunning guys who have been filling up innings. Dane Dunning has gone off the Rangers, and John Gray has a fractured wrist. And Cody Bradford, a guy who I've been pushing for a while now, one of my favorite gets outs guys, is dealing with elbow soreness. Certainly not what you want to hear. So, a young guy who really established himself last year in Cody Bradford versus Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter, who are looking to establish themselves. And John Gray, he's not the best pitcher in the world, but I would feel comfortable if he was healthy because I know he's going to keep this offense in the game. But if a couple of these guys go down, I mean, Jacob DeGrom, it's the same thing every year.
Yeah.
Will he be
But
healthy?
even then, like if you're
Yeah.
getting a full year of DeGrom, he's not throwing 170.
No.
So
Because we
who's
saw
throwing 170 innings in this rotation? Nate Eovaldi is the one guy.
at 35 years old, a couple of TJs under his belt. I'm not going to doubt Nathan Eovaldi.
No,
That dude is a dog, but I don't think it's fair to just expect
but
100.
that's your. If you told me I had to pick one,
Yeah.
that's my pick, and there's not even a case I think that you can make for anybody else reasonably.
Here's the problem with the Rangers. Like, I think if, let's say, someone else was on this podcast and they were giving us the positive side of the Rangers, I would probably start to buy into it. Like, this team, like you said earlier, could be the World Series champion. But I think if you're down on them a little bit or a little bit worried, you take the under win total or you take them to miss the playoffs entirely. Because we can't forget, this team, I know they got injured, wasn't quite the same team as it is this year. Their offense finished 23rd in OPS. Starting pitching staff finished 21st in ERA. And the bullpen finished 26th in ERA. And we're talking about this rotation, how we're a little bit nervous of them being able to eat innings. Go look at the bullpen right now.
Well, have you considered the Chris Martin farewell tour?
And they got Robert Garcia from the Washington Nationals. I mean, those are their two guys.
You know what's crazy? Can I give a prediction here? Emiliano Teodo may end up being their most valuable bullpen arm by July. And
And
so
what
that I
does
mean,
that even mean? Like, you know what
he
I'm saying? Is that a great bullpen arm, or is that just
he is a great bullpen arm. It's a little bit of both, but it's like I think that their best, like one of their best upgrades that they can make before they maybe make a trade or whatever it may be is calling up their guy who throws fuel. By the way, he throws 100, can touch 101. But in this spring, this is more of just a Teodo shout out too. He's been made 5 appearances, all scoreless, 6 strikeouts, only 2 hits. Teodo is going to get up there and help that bullpen. That helps me. It makes me feel a little bit better about it. But like, there's a chance that their rookie could be their closer. Because like, what are you gonna? I love Chris Martin. It's amazing that he continues to just get outs. But I love Chris Martin as a 7th inning guy. I don't know if I love him at this stage at 39 years old as a closer. I like Robert Garcia as a 6th, 7th inning guy.
yeah?
Mark Church, I was impressed with in the fall league. I like him as a rookie 6th inning guy. Luke Jackson, I'm so glad to see him back. I didn't even expect to see him back. So it's an interesting spot here where I think I could see that bullpen being a bit of an issue. Josh Spores hopefully can get back from the debridement procedure, which usually is never too big of a deal. But like Spores was out for most of last year as well. He was amazing in that playoff run, but he has not really put together a full good season either. I have some serious concerns about the staff, and I'm really excited for Jack Leiter. I think he's going to have a nice year. But again, I don't think they're going to run him into 170 innings. Kumar Rocker, I can guarantee you, is not throwing 170 innings. DeGrom won't either. Malley won't either. They're going to need innings to be filled in. And maybe it is Bradford, maybe it is John Gray, but I mean, we're still waiting on those guys too, as you mentioned.
I also think that the offense, just to wrap up on the Rangers, we said they are going to mash, and I think they will mash regardless of what I'm about to say. But I think it's fair to ask, what type of hitter is Evan Carter? And can Josh Young stay healthy? Two of the guys
Those
who
are
will
the
probably
two
hit
big
sixth
questions.
and seventh in this lineup. Because if those guys are crushing, then it's like the starting pitching concerns. I feel little bit better about it because this team is going to put up 6 runs every single game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they could be getting innings from, guys in their minor league system, or they pick up some journeyman pitcher and they can still win games. But if those guys aren't taking the next step, it's still going to be a good offense, but it won't be top three, top four in the league, right? So there's just too many questions for me to take the over, even though I could totally see this team winning the World Series at the same time.
That's the thing. So can I give you this scenario and then you tell me if you would take the over or under? This doesn't supersede your pick here. This is my crystal ball prediction of how I think a lot of this will go this year. And I'm curious if this would push you towards the over or under if this sequence happened. Semi and Seager do what they do. They have good years. Langford takes a leap and he's an all-star. Adoli struggles. Josh Young misses some time. Evan Carter's league average. All the other guys are kind of what you would expect. Jack Leiter takes a big step forward and is a really solid young pitcher at a high threes. Eovaldi's Eovaldi again. And DeGrom is good, but they're very careful, and he's only throwing 120 innings. Then you are kind of filling in Rocker's inconsistent, Tyler Malley's inconsistent. I don't even care about the bullpen at that point. Is that team winning 85 games?
I was just about to say 84.
Yeah.
It's that is I think
I could
what
see them really hovering around there.
I think that's the 50th percentile outcome. And I think that's a very fair assessment of what is very likely to happen. And I think if that happens, the under hits barely.
And I think that's a pretty good range of outcomes. We're talking
Yeah.
about
I mean, that's Langford taking a step to be an all-star. That's Leiter taking a step. That's
Seager
Kumar.
playing a full healthy season.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, Leiter taking a step forward. DeGrom being available for more than 100 innings. I think you'd be thrilled with any.
Thrilled.
I know he's projected for 132, but that's the other part of that is like these over under win totals. Like, I don't know what the bat has it at or what Fangraphs has it at, but you're counting on in these projections 132 innings from DeGrom, 123 innings from Leiter, which I think you can count on that.
Yeah.
132 innings from Malle. I don't know
That's a
about
lot.
that.
Yeah.
And even Rocker at 115, I think you can count on that. But Rocker, 115 innings at a 3.84. Look, he's a top 50 prospect for us. I love him, but I mean, I don't know if I have confidence in Rocker pitching to a 3.84 over the duration of the season.
But just real quick, like we're talking about these rookies that we feel good about being the guys who eat 120-ish innings. Like the rookies at the end of the day. We hope we could see the talent, but I think to even pencil that in is being a little bit too ambitious, even though we still might believe it.
Yeah, I'd go under on them as well. I think Patrick Corbin's going to be getting too many starts.
You and I are just holding hands on all of these.
No, not the other division. I think we were different in the last one.
That's true. That's true. We've had a couple that differ. So we're both taking the Rangers under at 85 and a half wins. You wouldn't suggest a bet on this, would you? I wouldn't.
No, only bet I would suggest is sprinkling on them to win the World Series if you want to root for them.
Yeah,
If you're a believer, don't bet on an over to win total. Bet on them to win the division or the World Series or whatever, because I only see it being polarizing outcomes.
I totally agree. All right, let's move on to the I was going to say Oakland A's, the no city designation A's, Sacramento A's, whatever you want to call them. Last year, the Oakland A's won 69 games, so went 69 and 93 based on the run differential and expected win-loss record of 68 and 94. Currently on BetMGM, the over-under for the A's is 71 wins. So simple question. When you look at this roster, do you expect them to win a couple of more games than they did last year?
Yeah, I do. I think for several reasons. I think yes, it's weird that they're playing in Sacramento, but I think there's finally some continuity here where there was a lot of turnover and stuff. But now you've got Brent Rooker locked up, you've got Lawrence Butler locked up. I think this core here all of a sudden is forming a little bit. And even the prospects like Max Muncy, who just made the team, by the way, which I love. We've been talking about how I think he's a better option. I know that it was unfortunately due to an injury to Zach Geloff, but I do think that Muncy is a better option moving forward, their former first rounder. Like even those guys have been around these veterans for a little bit, but you always almost assume that those veterans are going to be gone, and now they're hanging around and they're actually building something here. I mean, obviously Jacob Wilson's a high floor guy, so I mean, we're going to talk about the pitching and everything else, but I do think there's something to be said about even as they go to play in a no city designation, Sacramento, that the players themselves, the clubhouse themselves, like you're not really worried about the ballpark or anything at that point. It's just the people that you're with, and I do think that there is something to be said about the unity that's probably forming here as these players can kind of see some continuity, but also just the sheer talent offensively is just better as a lot of these guys are getting more comfortable settling into the big leagues or solidifying themselves as proven masters like a Rooker. So I just, especially with some of the other additions they've made, I can't see this team being exactly what it was last year.
I'll just play devil's advocate, even though I agree with you, and I think we're both going to be aligned on this over. But just explaining how this team could go under. I mean, the starting rotation could be a disaster. I mean, Luis Severino comes over after getting a nice contract, with the A's. We'll see what he does in his first season there. Jeffrey Springs has a lot of talent, but has not been on the field much. Osvaldo Bido, very inconsistent, flashes good stuff, but then not so much sometimes. JP Sears is more of a five starter, right? Has been kind of a consistent mid fours ERA type guy. Joey Estes, again, you'd probably want him to be more of a swingman, but he's going to be the five in the rotation. And then you look at the bullpen beyond Mason Miller. I like Jose Leclerc, and there are a couple of arms that are okay, but that would be the only way that the A's don't exceed expectations is if the rotation and the bullpen falls apart. But I think there's enough talent here to feel okay with it. I mean, the A's won 69 games last year. The starting rotation 26th in ERA, and the bullpen was 13th in ERA. I'd actually be kind of surprised if this bullpen is able to replicate that success.
Which is crazy because Mason Miller missed time too.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did that.
The starting staff, again, it was so bad last year, and they still figured out a way to win 69 games. And I like a couple of guys on offense better than, last year's squad. So I'm with you on the over, but I'm not running to bet MGM to bet this over.
I might be running to bet MGM to bet the over.
Okay.
There are a few reasons why. I think the pitching right now, not great. They have a lot of different players that they can try out there. And again, I'm not counting. It's a totally different conversation than the Rangers conversation because we're talking about them just needing to win 72 games here,
Yeah.
where the offense feel good about a lot of these pieces that they have here all of a sudden. And I do think Tyler Soderstrom is as good of a breakout candidate as you've got, but just that top of the lineup looks good. But when you look at the rotation, I have some concerns about some of those guys, but you're going to get Ken Waldichuk back at some point this year. Then on the prospect side, I do think they have some of the more underrated upper minors arms. Gunnar Hoglund looks good all of a sudden. The further he's gotten away from kind of the litany of injuries that he has had. And Gunnar Hoglund was once a really highly regarded prospect. And I know he gave up a handful of runs his last spring training outing, but when you look at the velocity back up into the mid 90s, he hasn't been there. I don't even know, even when he was a first round prospect, if he's been up into the mid 90s. So Hoglund, a guy that they added to the 40 man to protect from the Rule 5 because he can be a dog for them and actually end up eating some innings. JT Ginn looks like he can be a guy that eats innings for them in the back end of that rotation. I really like Mason Barnett as a potential number 4 type of starter. Jack Perkins, I like as a potential number 4 type of starter. All those guys are in the upper minors and should be getting up at some point this year. I think that can help them fight off what could be a disaster rotation wise. Severino, I don't think is going to be great, but I don't think he's going to be terrible. And he's going to be better than a lot of options they've had previously. And I did like the Springs acquisition. Another guy that the further he's gotten away from Tommy John surgery, the better he has been. It hasn't been a perfect spring for him either, but I don't look at those results for a 32-year-old nearly as much. He closed out the year really well for them, where with the Rays, final 5 appearances or final 5 starts, 24 and a thirds innings, 31 strikeouts. He pitched to a 2.22 ERA. If he's a high threes guy, low fours guy, I still think that's an upgrade from what they were dealing with last year. If the rotation just isn't bottom 5 or 8 in baseball, I just think this offense is going to find a way. And they've got a guy that, I mean, even though the bullpen's not great, well, you have one of the best closers in Major League Baseball at least, so that helps. I think they find a way to get to 74, 75.
You convinced me. I mean, I was already going to be on the over. I have them projected for 72 wins, but I see a path to 75.
I also really like Max Muncy. I want to put that out there. I think he's going to be a nice little player for them.
I think Lawrence Butler's probably going to make an All-Star game. I mean, he's
Yep.
manifesting it. If you've seen all these clips of him talking
He's
about it,
amazing.
and
I love that
I
guy.
love that guy. And Brent Rooker, I mean, one of the more likable guys in the entire league, and he's now a consistent 35 home run threat too. I mean,
And JJ Bleday, by the way, would be like the best player in the Marlins now.
yeah,
Like it's crazy. But I do think this is a power of friendship team too.
I like
They're
that.
going, they're playing in a triple A ballpark together. I think that there is something here with the clubhouse. I could see a power of friendship extra couple win boosts here.
Do you think you're actually going to get to the window on the A's
Yes, I
after we're
actually
talking
am.
about it?
I
Okay,
actually
cool.
am.
I'm not going to, but again, if you liked Arm's pitch, I'm starting to like Arm's pitch. I'm not going to lie to you. Make sure to go head over to BetMGM and use code JustBaseball again if you are new for that first bet offer. All right, last but
Least.
I hate to say certainly least, but we'll just say least, not certainly. We're trying to be nice to the Angels. Angels
I
fans,
know
I
there are
know
some
we
Angels
never.
fans who are like, can you actually
Can you
talk about them?
please?
I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yes,
It's not them. It's Artie Moreno. It has nothing to do with you guys. Artie Moreno just stinks.
he stinks, and the Angels stinked last year. I mean, they went 63 and 99. If you look at their expected win loss record based on their run differential, they were a game better, 64 and 98. All right. Well, first of all, they just made a trade Jose Suarez for Ian Anderson, which is kind of interesting. Jose Suarez has been horrific the past 2 years for the Angels between the bullpen and the rotation. And now they bring in Ian Anderson, who was great there for a second, and then it's just kind of faded into the wind. But Suarez was pretty good back in 2021, 2022. So maybe they see something could be a bullpen arm. Not sure, but you will add Ian Anderson to this rotation. They brought in Yusei Kikuchi. I still like Jose Soriano. Tyler Anderson gets outs, and I expect a bounce back from Reed Detmers. And I look at the offense, and again, it's similar with the Rangers with DeGrom, and you see Mike Trout in there, and you hope that he can play a full season. I mean, if he plays 130 games, this team likely goes over their 72 and a half win total. Um, where are you
Can
out
I
on
say
them?
can I
I'm
say I like that Ian Anderson trade?
for the Angels.
Yeah.
I do
I
too.
like you go Perry. And they do have a lot of former Braves, but so Ian Anderson's stuff looks like it's kind of back. He's been walking the world in spring training, but this is a progression here, and you're moving a bullpen arm that you really don't need, and hasn't been good for them as you mentioned. I'm sure the Braves identified something and they're gonna play around, but it wasn't gonna happen here in Anaheim. I like the idea of just going and getting another starter who could fill in there if Kyle Hendricks is getting bombed away or whatever it may be, and a guy with plenty of control. Control in terms of years, not control in terms of
The
throwing
short thumb.
strikes. That is the problem right now. But the stuff does look good, so we'll see. But I think it was a great shot to take there, and I thought that was a sneaky decent move. But especially when you don't need him necessarily to be right in there. But and we'll talk about the bullpen a little bit. But the Angels have some minor league arms, like upper minor league arms, that I got to see in the fall league and stuff like that. That I think definitely would have and are better options than what they were probably going to get out of a Suarez.
And I look at the just going back to the offense as well. You know, you're talking about some minor league arms that could potentially fill in for this team. You know, Christian Moore, I assume, is going to be their second baseman over Tim Anderson. But if Tim Anderson is playing well, that's again better for the Angels and, you know, points towards the over on win total. I actually think that this team will have a pretty decent outfield. I like Joe Adell, or at least he has a lot
You
of
like
potential
Todell?
still. I mean, you know me, I still give these guys chances. I mean, with the Luis Robert, it's like I see plenty of talent and I'm
I
always
know.
willing to buy it a little bit. I still think Taylor Ward is very solid, and then of course you have Mike Trout. But let's say Mike Trout were to go down. I mean, Mickey Moniak has flashed a ton of talent, former number one overall pick. It's hard for him to stay consistent, but if he can put together a couple of good months, if Mike Trout were to go down, you know, they bring in Travis d'Arnaud. I don't really know why, but it is a damn good catching tandem with
Yeah,
Logan
he's a
O'Hoppe and Travis d'Arnaud.
yeah, it is a good yeah, it is a good tandem. And also Kyron Paris like totally overhauled his swing. I think went like all in on the high level patterning basically, and that could be that can work really well for guys, or it could kind of do you in. And it looks like it's working really well for him in terms of the way he's going about it. He may swing and miss a bunch, but he's hitting the ball harder than ever. So that's another just infield option there. Darno definitely helps because we're just talking about looking for consistent bats that you could plug in here. I just don't know where he fits in consistently because Jorge Soler is probably going to clog that DH spot, I'd imagine, unless him and Trout are going to kind of swap and take turns playing right and DHing.
I have this team projected for 73 wins. I have them a game higher than the A's. Is that crazy?
I don't think it's crazy.
Because
Uh,
again, I keep looking at the bullpen too.
have you adjusted for the Yuan Moncada injury though?
I just did up from that. No,
you,
all due
you,
respect to you on
you
my
bumped it up a half game.
Yeah, I bumped it up. I bumped it up. Um, Kenley Jansen, Ben Joyce, and Brock Burke is a good back three.
Yeah, that can be pretty solid. I hope Burke bounces back. It was kind of a weird year from him, but we know he's talented.
And Yusei Kikuchi is a solid pitcher. I mean, he was. If you look at some of the underlying numbers, I mean, he was by those numbers some of the one of the best pitchers in baseball last year. I think Jose Soriano is a pretty good too. Heavy ground ball guy, throws fuel. And if Reed Detmers showcases the talent that we know he has, with Tyler Anderson just doing mop up duty, and then maybe they'll find one of those young guys in the minor leagues to be the five, or they'll just lose every Kyle Hendricks start on purpose. Maybe that's how they go under this win total. I think they're better than the A's. Am I crazy?
You're not crazy, but I disagree. Um, I mean, they probably have a higher floor,
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at.
but honestly, they probably are. If you surveyed a bunch of general managers across the league, I'd imagine most of them will say the team with Mike Trout and Jorge Soler and Taylor Ward and
Yeah,
even they have some young fun players in Logan O'Hoppe. Zach Neto is the big piece
yeah.
here too. Can you get Neto back sooner rather than later off his shoulder surgery? I don't know. And that if Zach Neto was in this, and I know that sounds crazy, but you know how much I love Zach Neto. But it's also just the element that he adds to this team, where I think there's some mashers here, but it kind of lacks a little bit of that speed and I don't know, just like dynamicism that you like to see. If you had Neto in there instead of a mystery bag of Tim Anderson, Kyron Paros, whoever the hell, I'd something about the aesthetic of this lineup would make me feel a lot better. I know that's terrible analysis, but
But it's
I
true. Like it might sound simple, but it's a fact. I
like
mean,
you're talking
right.
about Tim Anderson and Kevin Newman versus Neto and whoever else can kind of break out or grab that
I mean, think
spot.
about this. How excited would you be that in July it's Zach Neto and Christian Moore up the middle?
I mean, that can be so exciting. And so that's the challenge. Is like even if Moore takes the opportunity by the horns and goes crazy, you still have Kevin Newman at shortstop. I know he wasn't a disaster last year, but like it's not Zach Neto, who I think is one of the most underrated players in Major League Baseball. I could see this rotation being a little bit of a problem though. Like
I
if
like it.
Kikuchi, if Kikuchi goes back to Blue Jays Kikuchi, would you be surprised?
No. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised of
If
anything that
if
happened.
Kyle Hendricks is DFA'd in June, I hope not. Awesome guy. If he's DFA'd in June, would you be surprised?
No, I think that's just going to happen. But we're talking about a 72 and a half win total here,
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's like that. Yeah, that's just going to happen. But that
Uh,
doesn't take me off the Angels. That would be a good thing. That means that Kyle Hendricks is not pitching the entire year. If you told me Kyle Hendricks makes 30 starts for this team, I'm actually thinking about the under.
what
Not
if I
Kyle
tell
Hendricks
you?
getting DFA'd early.
What about Caden Dana and Jack Kohanowitz? If those guys are making more than 15 starts, how are
I'll
you
take
feeling?
them. I'll take them. Like they're not bad. They're not bad young pitchers. They're not elite. They're not going to make All-Star games. Who knows with Caden Dana? But I think they're fine. Like for example, would I rather have Caden Dana or Joey Estes this year? I'd rather have Caden Dana.
Yeah. I, I honestly, the bullpen concerns me a little too. Where Kenley was good,
Still shoves.
I don't love
I
him in the ninth still. I don't know. Like it's still buckle up season. I know you have Ben Joyce. I mean, that guy's arm just may not be able to stay attached to his body. I hope so. He threw 34 and two-thirds innings last year. Are you going to count on Ben Joyce to give you 60, 70 innings out of the pen?
maybe not 70, but can I get 50?
50 from your second best bullpen arm? Really your best bullpen arm, but your
I
setup
mean,
man?
this team's not going to win the division.
I know, I know, I know, I know. I
We're
know.
nitpicking. Yeah, I mean, no.
I'm going under. I'm going
Yeah,
under.
I'm
I
going
do want to
over.
shout out Sammy Natera, though, who's going to help this bullpen, but I'm going under.
Yeah, you need some unders anyway. I'm going over. Give me the Angels over. I think they win. I haven't projected for 73 games, and I think they win exactly that. All right, let's wrap up with, picking a division winner here. And just another reminder, right? This is about value. So you might think the Astros win the division. That's great. But do you want to bet on them at plus 160 when the Rangers are plus 200? The Mariners are plus 225. The Athletics are plus 2,200, and the Angels are plus 2,800.
Dude, you need to hit that. You need to lay down on that line right there.
Are you talking about Angels plus
Yeah,
2,800? It's
yeah, yeah.
mispriced. I think they're better than the A's.
You need to get all over that.
I'm thinking about it. Just a shekel or two.
Dude, Joe Adell, if this could be the year.
What if, hear me out, Joe Adell reaches full potential, Mike Trout
And
stays fully healthy, Jorge Soler hits 40 jacks, Taylor Ward doesn't get traded, and he's the typical 270 hitter with 25 jacks. Zach Neto is an all-star. Christian Moore is fighting for Rookie of the Year. Yusei Kikuchi replicates what he did. Ben Joyce takes that step as one of the best relievers in baseball, and the Angels win the division. Can I sell you on it at 28 to 1?
80 and 82.
That's still way over.
Yeah, I know that
That's
is
way
way over.
over. No, that team wins 83 games.
Yeah,
That happens, that's an 83 win team. And that might
and
be
and
enough in
and
this
Anthony
division.
Rendon coming back just out of the grave in August.
He's
Just
tw- he's 2019 Rendon again.
decides
Loves
baseball's fun.
loves baseball. These are not impossible
84.
things. Yohan Moncada goes back to what he was expected to be on the Red Sox.
They call up Anthony Mulrine, who just takes over the catching position, move aside Logan O'Hoppe. Anthony Mulrine's framing just separates him. That's my guy, by the way. Please
All
get
of
him up
these
for one at bat, please.
all of these things can happen. Will they? I don't know, but can they? My real pick though, I think the Mariners have the best.
That the odds there, it's I think a crapshoot, and that's what's gonna make this division really fun. And you're giving me the best rotation with the longest odds of
Yeah,
that trio.
they have the highest floor.
I'm running with that.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely that's one that I mean we're going to be in Cincinnati, so we're going to go into the sports book. I may put a couple I might put a $20 bill on that,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
All right, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow for National League win totals. That will really feature my Futures Wave Part 3. All of the bets actually are in the National League, so stay tuned for that episode. This week, again, apologies, posting this episode a little bit later than normal, but we're making up for it with a 4-episode week. And throughout the win totals, the player awards, we're going to be talking about all of that, extended wise in the Discord. Still $5 to join before opening day. The link is in the episode description. Remember to go get your Just Baseball merch. Of course, I'm rocking my hat. Go get yours in the merch store, which again, you can find in the episode description. You've been watching on YouTube, hit that like button, comment button, subscribe. And then, of course, if you've been listening on audio, rate and review 5 stars. Hopefully everybody enjoyed. We'll see you tomorrow for the National League win totals episode. For Arm Laden, I'm Peter Apple. With that, thank you, everybody.